James Lynch here for Spectation Sports, joined by my co-host Adam Martin as we take a look at the Floyd Mayweather Logan Paul boxing match, which is going to be taking place on Sunday. Adam, how are you?
I'm doing good, James. I'm doing good. We do have this, I guess, pretty big boxing match. It feels like you're right. There's not as much hype as like maybe a usual Floyd Mayweather fight, but I feel like it's because of the opponent in this fight. I don't think a lot of people are taking it too seriously. But it is a fight. It's two human beings inside a ring. We'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to talking with you, James. I'm pretty sure we're on the same page with this one, but I am looking forward to breaking it down regardless.
Yeah, and we'll talk about some prop bets as well. There's some different ways that you can kind of look at this matchup here. But yeah, I'm with you. Not that much buzz. And then this is a weekend where the UFC has a pretty weak card, so not really sure why there isn't more attention on it. But nonetheless, going to be taking place June 6th, which is a Sunday, at the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, Florida. So a lot going on there as well. Let's start first with Floyd Mayweather. Hasn't fought since the Conor McGregor fight, right? That was a couple of years ago. I guess technically you could use the Ryzen fight as well that he had, the exhibition that he had there as well. But the McGregor fight was back in 2017 in terms of just pure boxing. And Mayweather right now is, if we're looking at sort of the stats here, Mayweather is 5'8" with a 72-inch reach. And Mayweather right now is, he's up there in age. He's born in 1977. So going to be the much older fighter here. He's 44 years old. My math saved me there at the end. So he's going to be taking on Logan Paul, who is much younger here, 26 years old, 6 feet, 2 inches tall with a 76-inch reach. So Logan Paul going to be the bigger fighter in this matchup. Just looking at them physically, what are your thoughts on Mayweather fighting a much bigger opponent?
Yeah, and you just mentioned the height and the reach, which are obviously significantly in Paul's favor, but the weight as well. We didn't even mention the weight. Yeah. He's supposed to weigh in around like 199 pounds. That's what he fought KSI at. And Mayweather's usually fought at 147, 154. So there's a big weight advantage too, James, in addition to the height advantage, the reach advantage, and the age advantage. And those are always advantages I look at when I'm handicapping fights. And typically, James, I would pick the fighter with those advantages. The difference is, guys, when there is such a wide gap in skill, you just can't. That's the problem here, James. You got arguably the greatest, most accomplished boxer of all time, arguably, 50-0 against the guy who's 0-1. I think that says it all right there, James. You got the most experienced guy ever against a guy who really shouldn't be in the ring with him. The thing is, though, it's an exhibition fight. It's kind of funny, right? Like, it's not a pro fight. So it kind of makes people wonder, like, is something funny going to go on in this fight? Because it really doesn't matter. It doesn't hurt these guys. At the same time, James, I just feel like Floyd's such a proud guy. I feel like he does want to win this fight. You don't want to bet against Floyd. That's the thing, James. So, yeah, it's tempting to put the bet on the plus money here, guys, obviously, because you could think something funny is going to happen in this fight. I wouldn't do it. But we should talk about the odds. Minus 1,200 for Floyd Mayweather, James. Yeah. Plus 775 for Logan Paul. So I don't know what your thoughts on those are.
Well, just a couple things, and you kind of touched on it there. So the only intriguing thing about this fight is the weight difference, the height difference. So it is kind of like a David versus Goliath. And, there's going to be some people that are looking at this and saying, hey, there's some value here on Logan Paul. But the reality is, like Adam sort of touched on, is that he's fighting the greatest boxer of all time. It's not like he's fighting a boxer who's out of their prime. I mean, Mayweather is out of his prime, but he's not fighting just a boxer that was sort of mediocre. We're talking about the greatest boxer of all time. That's like, Lance Armstrong going in, playing basketball. Like, it's a completely different thing than what we're used to, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be any advantage there for Logan Paul as well. And the other thing is, there's some thought, and I want to get your take on this as well, that, when Floyd Mayweather fought McGregor, that there was some, talk about him maybe carrying McGregor a bit, maybe letting the fight go on a little bit longer, because if Mayweather was to go out there and finish the fight early, fans are going to be upset. They'll call a fix, whatever, right? Does Mayweather do that here? It's a possibility. So that's why, we'll get into props in a little bit. Sure. It might be good to, maybe, obviously you don't want to bet minus 1,200, but there might be some ways that you can find some success, whether it's a round prop or something along those lines, right?
Yeah, and it should be noted it's an 8-round fight. It's not a 12-round fight like the McGregor fight was, which I believe was for a belt, even though I don't know how it was. But yeah, we both saw. I can't remember if we watched that fight together, James.
We did. Yeah, we did. It was at our good friend Dustin Park's house.
That's right. I remember we watched that together, and we saw the first couple rounds. Obviously, Conor had some success, but you're right. I do think Floyd carried him a bit. He wants to Floyd's a showman, right? Like, he wants to give the fans their money's worth, James. But ultimately, James, this is such a gap in skill. Like, you thought Conor wasn't even in Floyd's range, right? Logan Paul is not even close to Conor. You know what I mean? So on paper, James, this looks like a blowout to me. And to be honest with you, I think the odds actually open at minus 5,000. They've actually gone down a little bit. I actually think minus 5,000 is more accurate than minus 1,200. I got to be honest with you. Because you look at some MMA fights lately, like Cyborg, she was minus 2,000 in her fight with Leslie Smith. I feel like Floyd should be a much bigger favorite than that, personally. So it's like, I don't want to completely overlook Logan Paul. I think he's actually a great athlete. I think his brother's a great athlete. I think the MMA community really hates these guys for some reason. I don't. I think they're great. I think they're great for combat sports. I think they're great for sports. I think they're great for us writers and us podcasters. We have something to talk about. And even though people don't like these guys, people want to hear people talking about them, James. They do end up tuning. They say they hate these guys, but they watch their fights, James. You saw how much viewership the last fight got. I think once we get to the weekend, because today's only Wednesday, we have like 4 more days till Sunday. It's weird how it's on Sunday too, by the way.
I figured out why that is. Now I remember because go ahead. Teofimo Lopez is fighting on Saturday, so I think they wanted to make sure there wasn't people watching both or having to pick and choose. So Sunday night, but we'll see. I mean, I can't remember the last boxing fight that was on a Sunday night, and it's not like Monday's a holiday either, right? So I'm not sure. I feel like
we'll get some more buzz though. I think going into the weekend, I think we will get maybe we have a press conference where they're talking a little bit of smack. But I feel like also Logan's brother Jake has taken some of Logan's thunder because the fight with Woodley was announced this week. I almost feel like they should have waited to announce that fight on the card. They should have waited till Sunday and been like, okay, we're going to do Woodley and Jake Paul during that, James. That's just my thoughts. But anyways, yeah, I mean, like, listen, I'm going to watch the fight. I will. I don't know about you, James. I'll watch this fight. Like, I'm not like above watching Jake Paul and Logan Paul fight. Like, it feels like there's always a lot of MMA fans and boxing fans too that like stick their noses at these guys thinking that they're like better than the sport, that they're better than these guys because they're not really part of the sport. But for me, James, they're entertaining. I'm going to watch this fight. I expect Floyd to absolutely wipe the floor with Logan. We'll talk about some props in a second, but you're going to watch it, right?
Yes, I'm going to watch it after the fact. I'm actually camping this weekend, but I will be watching the full fight after the fact. But and part of the reason is I forgot this weekend that they were fighting, to be honest, because that's how little I feel like this has been promoted. Just 2 quick things before we get to you and the prop bets. The Nakashawa fight that I referenced there, that was December of 2018. So that's the last time Floyd had any sort of competition that was on television. So keep that in mind as well. Bit of a layoff here. We're talking June 2021. And the other thing is, go watch the fight with Manny Pacquiao. And the reason I bring that up is for a couple of reasons. Do you remember after that fight, everyone's like, man, that was so boring. That's how Floyd fights. He's a defensive fighter. So that's one thing that's key here. Floyd's not going to be as fast as he was in the Manny Pacquiao fight, but people talking about the size and the power of Logan Paul, Floyd still got the head movement. That's not something that you lose, right? Like the speed might be lost, but the head movement's very tricky. Look at McGregor. He had a very tough time. We're talking about Conor McGregor here in the prime of his career, had a tough time hitting Floyd Mayweather. The same thing's going to happen here, especially with the guy in Logan Paul who does not have any sort of boxing background even comparable to McGregor at this point because, yes, he's been training, but it's not anywhere near as long as, McGregor has in terms of combat sports. So those are 2 things to point out. Don't be surprised if at the early going, it's not that exciting because Mayweather just, bobs and weaves out of the way. So your prop bets, what were you looking at here?
There's a couple I'm looking at, James. Okay, so look, I think, I watched Paul's fight with KSI again this morning, right? Just because I wrote the article. It's over at Spectation Sports. It's going to be posted, and you guys can read it. It's my full breakdown and preview for this card, for this fight, I should say. And I watched the fight again with KSI. And you know what? Like his brother, he's got obviously some talent. He's got a good jab. He's got the long reach, James. He's a tall guy. But here's the biggest problem I saw, James. He keeps his hands way too low. They're like almost at his waist. Mm-hmm. And he did get tired as the fight went on. What's Floyd known for? His incredible conditioning, the ability not to get hit, the ability to strike back and counter strike. James, I think this is going to be to be honest with you, I think it's a quick night for Floyd. Mm-hmm. The prop on him winning by TKO is actually minus 227, so you have to lay juice on it. Yeah. But I think that's the way this fight goes.
I agree.
Now, if you want to go with him by decision because you think that this fight's he's going to carry Logan and put on a show for the fans, that's plus 225, guys. So you actually get plus money on the fight going distance. But there's a reason it's plus money. It's because this fight will probably end inside the distance. I actually think that instead of betting the minus 1200, I'd rather take him by knockout. I think he does finish this fight.
Same here.
The other thing to mention is there won't be official judges for this fight. Okay, so there's some props on decisions right now, guys, but there's no official judges. Having said that, at Jake Paul's fight in Triller with Roy Jones Jr. and Mike Tyson, they had judges, celebrity judges that were former boxers that scored that fight. And they scored that fight a draw, James, even though I think we all know Mike Tyson won. There's also a prop on this fight going to be a draw at plus 1200. Okay, it's an exhibition fight. Who knows? Something funny could happen. The judges could be like, yeah, it was a draw. He didn't win the fight. So I think that's another way you could look at it. But, James, honestly, I look at Floyd winning this fight by knockout. There is round props too that are plus.
That's what I was going to get to. Let me tell you my strategy for this one. I would take round 1. I would take round 2. I would take round 3. Put small amounts on, and one of those is going to hit. I'm pretty sure he's going to knock out Logan Paul, right? At some point in the fight, maybe when he's tired. You could literally bet every round at a small amount and still come out in the green here. That's something that's interesting because we know he's probably going to knock out Logan Paul. why not get the plus money and just be creative with it and maybe just bet a little bit? You know, maybe not round one. I don't think we're going to see Mayweather round one finish, but look at McGregor. What round was that? That was later in the fight. It was a round 12 or round 10, I should say. So maybe you bet, you know, maybe 5 onwards. You bet a couple, you know, prop round 5, round 6, round 7, round 8, and just get creative with it. Again, you don't have to do this, but that's something I would be looking at because you know he's going to win by knockout. Or if you're, you know, even more confident, just lay it on the knockout prop at minus 227. Parlay that with, you know, some other sport or something. I don't know. Like you can kind of figure it out there, right? So.
With your boy Teofimo, I mean, you could parlay those two.
Exactly. I think Teofimo wins that fight. He's minus 1,200, I think, or something there, but maybe not a ton of value.
Maybe him by knockout, two guys by knockout.
There you go. Do the knockout prop on both guys.
Worth looking at the props, though, for this fight, just because the odds are so high. There was the Andy Ruiz fight last month. He was minus 1,200. I remember in my article I said, take Ruiz by decision at plus 400. And our boss, Steven, sent me a message saying, thank you for that prop, because I ended up hitting it because there was good value in that prop. And he ended up winning by decision. So I think that the value is in the prop sometimes, especially in boxing where the favorites are so big, James. I will say this, though. I think that if you bet on Logan Paul or on any of these props on Logan Paul, you're throwing your money away, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I wouldn't touch him at all. It's Floyd or pass. Even though the line is so crazy, it's still a favorite or pass situation. Floyd Mayweather will win this fight. The question is, how does he win? I'm pretty sure he gets the knockout in this fight, James.
There you go. So a lot to look and digest on from this preview here today. We want to thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you give the video a like, hit that subscribe button. We're always doing stuff on here every single week, whether it's regional MMA, UFC, boxing, you name it. We're doing a bit of everything here on Spectation Sports. I am James Lynch. He is Adam Martin. We will see you soon. Enjoy the fights this weekend, and we will see you soon.